Hey guys, Kinoflex here, back with another review. Today I'll be talking about the movie Mickey 17, directed by the prominent South Korean director Bong Joon-ho. This is Bong's first film since Parasite, which was released back in 2019, which I hold in very high regard. It's a film that really cuts deep with its commentary and has a lot of thought put into it. But is Mickey 17 the next Parasite? Well, let's delve into it. And just a heads up, but there will be spoilers. The film follows a man named Mickey Barnes who wakes up after falling into a crevice on a snowy planet called Niflheim, injured and unable to move. A pilot named Timo arrives, taking Mickey's flamethrower and leads him to get eaten by some alien bugs called creepers, telling him that they'll just clone him again. Then we go 4 1/3 years into the past to get the backstory where Mickey and Timo are chased by loan sharks after failing to pay them the loans they owed for their failed macaron business. To escape them, they enlist to go on a spaceship voyage headed to Niflheim. Mark Ruffalo and his wife are the leaders of the ship. Without reading the fine print, Mickey enlists as an expendable, someone who works as a glorified guinea pig for the scientists on the ship, who they can bring back thanks to a cloning machine called a printer. The printing technology is not permitted on Earth due to ethical and philosophical reasons, but is permitted in outer space and in the new planet they will colonize. I have some issues with the backstory of how humanity reacts to the printing technology, but we'll save that for later. The journey takes 4 years, and during that time we go through multiple Mickeys. When they arrive, they find the atmosphere of the planet is toxic and go through more Mickeys until a vaccine is made, making the titular Mickey 17 the latest one. During the voyage, he falls in love with a woman named Nasha, who is the only one who respects his sentience, before and after each time he dies. Eventually, an exploration mission happens where Mickey and some others discover the creepers. One of the other voyagers stupidly shoots at one of the creepers, which causes a cave-in that gets her killed. So Mickey is blamed and tasked with hunting some of them down. This led to him getting into the predicament in the opening scene. When we join Mickey again, instead of eating him, the creepers nurse him back to health and send him back to the ship. When Mickey goes back to his room, he finds Mickey 18 already there, which leads to a fight between the two because there can't be two clones or multiples at once. There's an incident they cite with one of the scientists credited with creating the cloning program being a serial killer who cloned two separate versions of himself to use as alibis for his murders, and is portrayed as some big moral and ethical conundrum, despite being a very obvious problem to solve, since all three were co-conspirators to the murders. If everyone on Earth thought that this was a complicated problem, then the vast majority of the population must be pretty dumb. The one exception they made for the technology was the expendable program for space travel, while still outlawing there being multiple copies with it being punishable by death, which seems like a gigantic waste of the technology. I have a really hard time believing that nobody would think that it would be a good idea to use the technology to duplicate people's organs or some other positive contribution, or even that they would kill someone simply for having another copy created, which was the result of a careless mistake that wasn't even their fault. You're seriously telling me that our civilization in the future that has mastered cloning other people along with their memories are somehow unable to keep track of multiple clones running around with some feature that would distinguish one from the other? That is just too asinine for me to believe, and as a result, I just can't buy into the premise that's been presented to me. The movie just has a really childish and unimaginative view of how humanity would go about using the technology. It felt like a spur-in-the-moment hypothetical with not a whole lot of thought put into it.
If you had a clone of Hitler, would you torture it?
No, why not just say if you had a tiny little Hitler?
Because
No, listen, if it's a clone, I wouldn't because that person didn't commit the actions.
oh
It's
my
a
God,
genetic clone.
He did.
And if it's a clone, he didn't fucking do anything.
He did do it.
No, because he's an identical clone. He didn't do shit. The actual Hitler did it.
He actually did it, but this guy did it in his thoughts and in his mind.
No,
he
he didn't.
That's how he perceived it.
do anything then.
He's still a bad
You sound
guy.
like
He's still a bad
You're
guy.
not aware of it.
He's still
if
bad.
he thought about it, he didn't know
He's
that.
still evil. He thinks he
Chris.
did it.
Your neighbor could be thinking these things too.
But you're basically you have the same mindset as those people on Tumblr that are like, oh, I think I had wings in another life, therefore I did.
You guys are not listening.
I am listening. You're not making sense. You're not making logical sense.
I am making logical sense. Listen to me.
you're not.
Listen to me one more time. This is exactly how I'm saying it.
I know I put this Oni Plays clip in as a joke, but I'm just now realizing that there's actually more logical thought put into this entire exchange than the situation put into the actual movie, which I find really funny. Back to the plot. Despite being the same person, each Mickey apparently has a different personality. Mickey 17 is shy and reserved and wants to help people, while Mickey 18 is more aggressive and violent. Looking over some reviews prior to making this, a lot of people seem confused over Mickey 18 being so much different from Mickey 17, but the movie shows a scientist tripping over a wire, which screwed up the cloning process. It's a blink once and you miss it scene, but they do show it. It's something they should have expanded on more, but in the film it doesn't really matter that much how Mickey 18's different personality came into being, as the main thing that matters is Mickey 17 realizing that once he dies, the person that comes after him won't be the same as him anymore. Also, from henceforth, I'm just going to call them 17 and 18 respectively, because why not? 18 tries throwing 17 down a smelting pool but is interrupted by Tito, who is revealed to be selling drugs on the ship. 18 is pissed off at Tito for being a terrible friend who left him to die and for getting him into this mess in the first place, so he impulsively tries to kill Tito, only to once again be interrupted, this time by Nasha, who 18 leaves with after threatening Tito to stay quiet. 17, meanwhile, is invited to attend a dinner hosted by Mark Ruffles and his wife, who are in charge of the voyage, and a scientist named Kai. I'm not exaggerating when I say that all three of these characters are the worst parts of the film. Mark Ruffalo is a lazy orange man stand-in who is just your generic stupidly inept bad guy who managed to acquire political power, with his wife being someone obsessed with making things into sauce, telling him what to do. His motivation is to repopulate Niflheim into being an all-white planet, even though a lot of his supporters on the ship aren't even white. If you're in charge of handpicking who gets to go on a space voyage, and your goal is to make a white ethno-state planet, then why the hell would you allow it to be as racially diverse as possible? I can't even buy into the idea that he's a racist because an actual racist would not go about it the way he did. If you are at all interested in any of the philosophical musings related to the ethics regarding cloning, you're probably going to end up hating these characters like I did, because every time he shows up, he makes the film dumber and feel like I'm watching something entirely different. And as for Kai, this character is so pointless because her subplot goes practically nowhere that I'm convinced Bong gave up on writing it at some point since she just inexplicably goes away. I haven't read the book the movie is based on, but from what I've read online, all three of these characters were either heavily altered or didn't even exist, which explains why there is such a blatant disconnect. Anyways, 17 is almost killed during dinner by Ruffalo and his wife after they poisoned him to test a new type of artificial meat. Kai then brings him back to her room where they almost kiss. But 17 rejects Kai because he still has feelings for Nasha, so he comes back to his room to find her and 18 completely high from drugs given to them by Tito and embracing each other. And the solution they reach is that they need to enter a polyamory relationship where the two take turns doing work and dying, which as a plan doesn't make any sense because the cloning process is completely messed up, meaning that if one of them dies, their personality is not guaranteed to be printed as it previously was. If the process remains broken, then 17's clone will be more like 18. But if the process is fixed to how it previously was, then 18's clone will be more like 17. Neither one gets what they want in this poorly thought out plan. And on top of that, 17 clearly does not like having to share his girlfriend with another person, since 18 is established to be his own separate person. As they are hanging out, Kai comes into the room and discovers the multiples and leaves to report them. Nasha leaves and begs her to keep quiet, to which Kai says that she won't report them if she gets to keep 17 as her boyfriend, which causes Nasha to blow a gasket because she wants them both. It's a very weird scene because both of them are talking about the Mickeys as objects, yet we're supposed to find Nasha admirable despite forcing 17 into being in a relationship he doesn't want to be in. For a film that's presumably about respecting a person's individuality, this possessive attitude from Nasha, who doesn't even allow either of the Mickeys to get a say in the matter, runs counter to that theme. As Nasha and Kai are arguing, 17 tells 18 how he almost died from being poisoned by Ruffalo, which makes him so mad that he decides to make an assassination attempt on his life. During a ceremony, the crew brings in a big rock they found on Niflheim, cuts it in half, and Ruffalo promises everyone their names will be engraved on the stone and will be used as a monument for the future generations of colonizers. But two baby creepers unexpectedly pop out once it gets cut in half. This causes mass panic where 17 arrives and manages to capture one of them. The second baby creeper touches Ruffalo's face, so he has that one killed and the other one experimented on. 18 tries to kill Ruffalo with a gun, but just grazes him on the cheek. This causes the multiples to be discovered, with them along with Nasha being arrested. While they are imprisoned, 17 tells Nasha and 18 that the creepers were friendly and saved him. As he is telling them this, Tito comes in telling them that the mob boss after Mickey and himself sent one of his goons after them, demanding one of them gets chopped up, with Tito deciding to chop up one of the Mickeys with a chainsaw. You would think that he would chop up 18 since he's the one that tried to kill him, but he decides to chop up 17 instead because he says that chopping him up will be easier despite them both being physically the same. Tito gets overpowered and beaten up by 18 and Nasha though, just in time for security to come in so they can be blamed for trying to kill him because, of course. They then get brought before Ruffalo, who needs them to do something about the creeper situation, which has been getting out of hand. Ruffalo's wife cut the tail of the baby creeper they captured to make a sauce out of it. It cries out in its language, which leads to all the creepers surrounding the ship because there's a telepathic link between them all. 17 and 18 are forced to go hunt the creepers and their tails, or they will be blown up by vests full of explosives that are put on them. A little scientist lady that looks like Sam Bankman-Fried's girlfriend gives the clones a translator she worked on while studying the baby creeper. I don't know how you can decipher an entire alien language enough to make a whole translator for them after just learning that they were intelligent a few hours ago. But hey, if Bong thinks it's so easy, then he's welcome to become Earth's official translator in case we're ever put into a situation like that in the future. 17 finds the big mama creeper that helped nurse him back to health and starts speaking with it. She explains that since one of her baby creepers was killed, one human must die and the second baby must return, or else they will use their special move that can explode human heads and kill everyone on the ship. During that time, Ruffalo decides to just gas every creeper that is around the ship, but before doing that, he decides to go and speak to the mama creeper in person because he's stupid. 17 communicates with Nasha over camera to bring the baby to him by playing charades with her, which alludes to a sex position they use on each other that's conveniently called bring the baby. Meanwhile, 18 plans to kill Ruffalo again with him as their sacrifice to the creepers. 18 makes himself explode with Ruffalo, and Nasha brings the baby to the mama creeper, which allows peace to be restored. We then flash forward 6 months in the future where we get an epilogue. Ruffalo's wife was imprisoned and killed herself by cutting her wrists. There's a weird dream sequence where it seems as though she's bringing back her husband as a clone, but 17 just wakes up. Tito almost gets killed by a mobster, but he kills him instead. Kai is dating a woman now, but still hates Nasha and flips her off because she's still bitter that she's not dating Mickey, I guess. 17 goes to see the mama creeper and finds out that they never had a special move that can kill all of the humans, and it was a bluff to scare them. And Nasha becomes the leader of the colony, and her first act is to destroy the printer, with 17 pushing the button himself. Everything is sunshine and rainbows, with everyone happy and the Expendables being no more. And that's the movie. Going back to the question I raised in the beginning of the video asking if this is on par with Parasite, I would say definitely not. If I were to compare this with one of Bong's previous films, it would be Okja, which is a film nobody really remembers. I'd give this a 4 out of 10, closer to a 5 than a 3. Originally, I was thinking of giving this around a 6, but after finding out that the most interesting parts were pretty much all piggybacked from the book and all the worst parts were original changes for the film, I became much less charitable. If you're going to make changes to a story to better fit the vision you have and are praised if they end up being good, then conversely, if the changes work out negatively in a story's favor, then that should be held against you. There's too much narration, too many flashbacks, too much telling, not enough showing. Robert Pattinson's performance was fun, and I would say the main reason to go see it. It's really fun watching him play two characters that look the same but are opposites of each other. From a thematic standpoint, I guess the film is about growing up because Mickey seems to be in a constant state of adolescence where he can't take any initiative or stand up for himself. He suffered from the trauma of accidentally getting his mom killed by pressing a big red button that caused them to get into an accident, which is a situation that's repeated with Mickey 18 having to press a button to sacrifice himself and Mickey 17 pressing a button to finally destroy the cloning device. Mickey blowing it up symbolizes himself growing up by finally taking ownership of his life and not passively relying on a clone of himself to live for him. You even have the numbers 17 and 18 alluding to age, with 18 being the commonly accepted age for when someone reaches adulthood. And on the surface it sounds good, but 18 is really underdeveloped as his own character because he's very inconsistent throughout the story. He goes from being incredibly selfish to the point of murder to keep himself alive, to becoming incredibly selfless to the point of sacrificing himself seemingly at random. If the film focused on fleshing out this aspect more instead of inserting the coup against Mark Ruffles and the half-baked subplots, I can see this being a much better movie. But the weak political allusions didn't do this movie any favors, especially when there are flashbacks that tie in with them. This movie had a few scenes that didn't need to be in there, and the narration from Mickey is completely unnecessary since we can clearly see what he's describing. Mark Ruffalo was easily the worst part of the movie though. His performance is honestly on par with something you'd see in Megalopolis. Every time he's on screen, the whole movie turns into lowbrow political commentary of how not Orange Man is stupid because he refuses to put his ego aside to learn that the native alien creatures of the ice planet are friendly. Some people will probably say that's just like real life, when it really isn't, so it makes any attempts at political commentary fall flat because no one in the real world acts like this. The obsession with politics to deliver your standard democracy good, xenophobia bad message felt like a waste to prioritize when there were much more interesting concepts that could have been explored, such as the implications going on with printing clothes to serve people, what the true value of a person is when you do that, or how different experiences the clones can go through can mold them into being entirely different people, even if they're both technically the same person. Another thing that bothered me was how everyone kept asking Mickey what it feels like to die. How would he know? He never felt it. Mickey 16 and the rest before him were the ones who felt what death was like, and those deaths would have been after uploading Mickey's memory on the ship. Mickey 17 would then get printed out and uploaded with the most up-to-date memories, which were before the experience of death. So, from the latest Mickey's perspective, it should feel to him like he went to update his memory, but as that process completes, he awakens instead on the printing table. He shouldn't know what it's like to die. It's such a weird plot hole, especially when it's such an important part of the movie. There seems to be a major difference in how Bong writes movies for South Korean audiences compared to American audiences, as his American movies seem intentionally dumbed down or not as thought-provoking. He understands South Korea enough to address big issues the country is going through to explore interesting characters and journeys, but he doesn't really get super personal or delve deep into issues outside of his native country, so it becomes an uninspired satire of cheap shots using generalizations and stereotypes. If he made Mickey 17 with a full Korean cast, I feel as though they would be written more like actual humans. When I got out of the theater for this, I knew there were definitely parts I strongly disliked, but after writing out the script, I gradually began to realize that there was more I disliked about the movie than I actually liked. It's far from a terrible movie, I guess, but out of Bong's films, it's the weakest I've seen from him. But those are just my thoughts, and if you have your own, then feel free to type them out in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you!